Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and in today's episode, it's Milan-San Remo time and a storm is brewing. Only it's not the weather. The weather now has gotten better. Latest reports that I have read for Milan-San Remo tomorrow sounds like it's going to be a tailwind and cold conditions, but no storm coming over for the Italian monument race that's beginning here in 2025. Now, what does that mean for Tadej Pogačar? What's it mean for Filippo Ganna? What's it mean for Jasper Philipsen? And for Matthew van der Poel, Lidl Trek, how about over there with Johnny Milan and Mads Pedersen? What does a tailwind all means? It means look out, a storm is brewing, but it's called Tadej Pogačar. It's not called the weather. What does that mean for us fans when we're watching? Well, if they have a tailwind going down the coast as they're going their direction over to France and they're going all the way to the finish at Milan-San Remo, if it's a tailwind on the coast after they cross over the Tortino, what does that mean? It means the pace is going to be exceptionally fast. It means any breakaway that's up the road has an advantage with a tailwind, there's no doubt. Why do they have more of an advantage of a tailwind than a headwind? Because a headwind requires more power and the Peloton always has more power. Or another way of looking at it, the human body has a governor. At some point in time, all the riders with maximum speed can no longer produce the same kind of power at 60, 50 kilometers an hour versus 40 or 50 kilometers an hour. It starts to change as you start dropping the speed down and it needs more power. The Peloton has an endless abundance of power back there to keep adding more riders to the front. With a headwind means that they can exchange riders more often where the front brake cannot, and it means the riders behind in the Peloton are getting a better draft because of a headwind. Now you throw a tailwind, everybody's going faster. When they get along the coast, it's going to be magnificently dangerous. It is so scary. I have never gone and done a bike race like I have at Milan-San Remo when I did it in the 90s with FDJ. More scared for a longer length of time than I was at this race that starts tomorrow. When they get on the coast, because it's wide roads, narrow, and then super one-lane narrow between buildings, it causes the Peloton to shrink in size. When it's a tailwind, the front group does not slow down. But the back group, when they hit the brake, that means they have to accelerate even harder to get back up to the front of the Peloton. When it's curb to curb, it doesn't make much of a difference for the riders at the back so much to stay in the Peloton. But every time they brake, and they brake often at Milan-San Remo before we start getting into the 3 capo climbs and before we reach the Cipressa and the Poggio, they're going to brake multiple times, and every time they have to brake with a tailwind, they have to do a harder acceleration to get back to the front because the front guys are going Mach speed because of the tailwind. That means that the breakaway is going fast and the front of the Peloton's going even faster to try to bring the breakaway back, and they will not have the option to slow down and let off the gas if there's a break to let riders get back to the Peloton. So all those riders that are getting stuck by the accordion and the crashes through the roundabouts, the narrow towns, the parked cars, the narrow roads, the wide roads, as it's always expanding and contracting, the roads there at Milan-San Remo, that means all those guys hitting the brakes have to do bigger accelerations to get back on. It also means if the tailwind is so good for the breakaway that the Peloton behind has to have the gap shorter than normal when you get on the coast. Otherwise, the speeds that they're going to have to do back there up compared to the speed at the front of the riders, it's going to have to be Mach speed in the back. And when you're already at a tailwind, a breakaway of 5 or especially 10 riders can already max out what the speed of the bike can do, which means the Peloton can't go any faster, right? They have an abundance of power back there, but if the tailwind is pushing everyone at 70 kilometers and 80 kilometers an hour, I don't think it's going to be that strong. But if they're pushing at 60 to 70 kilometers an hour and the Peloton behind there can only do 2 kilometers an hour faster than the group in front instead of 5 or 10 when they won, it means it'll be a harder catch to bring back the breakaway, which means it'll tire out the Peloton, which means it will help the legs of one Tadej Pogačar. Now, let's fast forward. Let's go into the end because we all know it's about the last 27 kilometers of Milan-San Remo that will really dictate the race and how it affects Tadej Pogačar and the second-tier riders. Okay, not Matthew van der Poel. He's a first page rider, there's no doubt about it. But everyone else is second. So what does it mean when you have a strong tailwind coming down? Well, when you hit the first climb, the Cipressa, what it means is that every time on the switchbacks that it will change the direction of the wind. What does it mean for Tadej Pogacar? Well, if it's a headwind, Tadej Pogacar does not want to attack in the headwind when he's going up the Cipressa or the Poggio. He wants to stay on his teammates that are going full gas through the headwind. And what does it mean when it becomes a crosswind? Remember, when you have switchbacks, it can't always be a tailwind up the climb. It's impossible. At some point in time, the wind has to change conditions, and nothing helps the Slovenian Tadej Pogacar better than having a crosswind. Why is that the case? It means that the riders behind, when we're talking Lidl Trek, when we're talking Filippo Ganna's Ineos team, when we're talking about Matthew Van Der Poel and Albacin de Koenig, when we're talking about Tom Pidcock, who might not have any teammates left after we get over the Cipressa, it means that those riders in a crosswind sections have no teammates to look after them, but Tadej Pogacar will have the strongest team to start Milan-San Remo, and you can be sure it'll be one of his climbers in front of him through a crosswind section going up the Cipressa, and especially if Del Toro can make it into the Poggio at the front when they turn off the coast. If Del Toro is at the front and they have a crosswind, I think we see Tadej Pogacar go over the climb solo if he has his best form from years past. Remember, he crashed at Strade Bianche. Doesn't seem to have affected him. From the words of his director sportif, Machine, not mine, I do not know how he's affected from that crash at Strade Bianche, but I know a crash like that can have an effect on you, and I know it could have zero effect on you. It does not mean just because he crashed that you will go bad at Milan-San Remo after the crash of Strade Bianche, but it does mean it could. So if Del Toro is on the front and he's blowing it up on the Poggio, and he's blowing it up in a crosswind section, if the wind's coming right to left, Tadej Pogacar can tell Del Toro, stay to the left side of the road. When I won Tour of California right here in 2011, I had multiple teammates around me to start the final climb, but originally we were supposed to have Levi Leipheimer as the leader of the team, but Johan Bernal told me I was as close to the #1 leader on the team as he could possibly make it. So if any mistakes at all were to be found throughout the mountain stages of the Tour of California, we were supposed to switch roles immediately. When we started the first mountain stage at Tour of California, Levi Leipheimer went off the road on one of the descents. We switched immediately to me. Levi found his way back onto the front of the group before we started the final climb. Once we started that climb, we had Mathieu Boucher in front of me. I had Mathieu Boucher, myself, and Levi Leipheimer. Immediately, we were under these same kind of conditions. We had a tailwind starting the climb, then an immediate 90-degree left turn into a crosswind. Once we were coming into the final climb and we were coming up it, we saw that with the massive tailwind going, I immediately told Mathieu Boucher, you drill it up the climb here, but you hold something back. Do not go 100%. Go 95%. Once we make the left turn at the top and we're in the crosswind, you stay to the right side of the road. The wind was blowing from left to right. Stay on the right. Leave just enough room on your side of the road there on the right side for myself and for one Levi Leipheimer. Once you make that left turn, you start sprinting. I need 200 meters of everything you got. Everything you got. Hold nothing back. We made the left turn. Boucher drilled it magnificently, blew the Peloton up at the Tour of California. Once he pulled off the front, I took over. I had Levi Leipheimer on my wheel. We ended up catching Ryder Hegedal. Levi Leipheimer was a little bit off on form. I had the green light to attack. I attacked, won the stage, and won the Tour of California with tactics that were spot on. These are the same kind of tactics that Tadej Pogacar can employ in tomorrow's Milan-San Remo. When you hit the Poggio, the last and final climb there of Milan-San Remo, once you turn off the coast, hopefully he has 2, if not 3 teammates around him. But hopefully at least Tim Wellens and at least Del Toro. If that's the case, when he starts it, depending on the wind conditions, Tadej Pogacar has to decide immediately what he's going to do. The best tactic, tailwind, you sit there and you stay on your teammates and you go full gas. Once you make the first hairpin turn and becomes a headwind, you want to be again on your teammates. You want to stay with them until the crosswind section comes. And once you have a crosswind section, much like at the Tour of California with Boucher doing it for me, Tadej Pogacar wants to drill his teammates to the maximum level that they can sustain for a 200 or 300 meter period and then pull off, and Tadej Pogacar has to go to work. If the wind's coming from the right to the left, it'll be Del Toro, and that'll be in the win, and then it'll be Tadej Pogačar. And hopefully for Tadej Pogačar, if he's trying to win Milan-San Remo, we all know he wants to win it badly because he needs this monument. If he wants to start getting all 5, because he has 3 now, and he needs Milan-San Remo and Paris-Roubaix to round out the 5 monuments, the greatest one-day races in the European peloton, along with the Road World Championships, that is. So Tadej Pogačar will drill his teammate through the crosswind. And then once his teammates finally done it while they're still in the crosswind section, Tadej Pogačar has to light everybody up, because in the crosswind section, if the wind's coming from right to left and he's on the left side of the road all the way to the left, so Mathieu van der Poel cannot sit behind his wheel like this. He has to be like that. The wind's coming this way. It'll push Mathieu van der Poel, Mads Pedersen, Filippo Ganna, Tom Pidcock, and all of the other favorites. Possibly Jasper Philipsen's one of the favorites. He crashed too at his last race, so we'll have to see. But if they're all in the wind, Tadej Pogačar's advantage on the front starts to increase to big dividends over the favorites here at Milan-San Remo as he's attacking in the crosswind. So wise tactics here could win Tadej Pogačar, Milan-San Remo, because if there's a tailwind, it's the magical ingredient that Tadej Pogačar has been missing the last 3 seasons at Milan-San Remo. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. It's going to be a show from the Slovenian Tadej Pogačar on tomorrow, Saturday, Milan-San Remo. I'll see you guys for the butterfly effect real soon.